and by every usual standard, I was the biggest failure I knew.
Most people who say that are exaggerating. She wasn't. She had lost her marriage, lost her income, lost her home. She was alone in a foreign country with a baby daughter and a suitcase. And inside that suitcase, 3 chapters of a story nobody had asked for. Nobody wanted. Nobody believed in. Nobody except her. And here's what makes this story so hard to understand. She wasn't just broke. She wasn't just rejected. She was at the kind of bottom where most people stop believing in themselves entirely. And she kept writing. Not because she had a plan, not because someone told her to, but because the story inside her refused to stay quiet. And the world had absolutely no idea what was coming. But this isn't just a story about someone who didn't give up. Those stories exist everywhere. This one is different. Because most people who face rejection eventually change what they're doing. They adapt. They pivot. They become something else entirely. She didn't. She held onto one story, one world, one idea that came to her on a delayed train, and refused to let it go, even when she had every reason to. And here's what nobody talks about when they tell her story. The rejection wasn't the hardest part. The hardest part was believing in something that nobody else could see yet, carrying a world inside your head, while the real world was falling apart around you. That's not stubbornness. That's something else entirely. And the question nobody asks is, where does that kind of belief come from? What creates a person who can hold on to a dream through that much darkness? That's where the real story begins. Before anyone knew her name, she was just a girl who lived inside books. Born in a small town near Bristol, England, the kind of childhood where the library was the most exciting place in the world, where stories weren't just entertainment, they were everything. She wrote her first book at 6 years old, her first novel at 11. Not because someone asked her to, not because she was trying to impress anyone, because the worlds inside her head needed somewhere to go, and she already knew, even then, that writing was the only thing she ever wanted to do. But the world had other ideas. Her parents had grown up poor. They understood what poverty meant, what it cost, what it took from you. And they wanted something different for their daughter, something stable, something safe, something that paid the bills. So she studied languages at university, and quietly, when nobody was watching, she switched to classics. Because she couldn't help herself. She couldn't stop chasing the things that mattered to her, even when it made no practical sense. After graduating, she worked at Amnesty International in London. Every day she read letters smuggled out of prisons by people risking their lives to tell the world what was happening to them. Every day she saw what real suffering looked like. And every day, on her lunch break, she wrote. Because the story inside her was getting louder. And then one afternoon, sitting on a delayed train from Manchester to London, it arrived. A boy, a school, a world she'd never seen before, but somehow already knew. She had no pen, no paper, nothing to write with. So she just sat there, letting it pour into her mind, filling in every detail, every character, every corner of a world that didn't exist yet. And when she finally got home, she started writing. She had no idea what that train delay was about to cost her, or what it was about to give the world. And life did not wait for her to finish. Her mother had been sick for years, multiple sclerosis, a slow, cruel disease that takes everything one piece at a time. She watched her mother disappear gradually, and in 1990, the same year the story arrived on that train, her mother died. The grief was devastating, but she kept writing because the story was the one place where the pain had somewhere to go. Trying to outrun the grief, she moved to Portugal, taught English, met someone, got married, and in 1993 had a daughter, Jessica. But the marriage was not what it seemed. It was dark. It was painful. It ended, and she found herself on a plane back to the UK with her baby daughter in her arms. And a suitcase containing the first 3 chapters of a book nobody had asked for. She landed in Edinburgh, alone, no job, no money, living on government assistance. A single mother in a cold city trying to hold everything together while something inside her was quietly breaking. The depression came slowly. Then, all at once, dark thoughts, heavy mornings, days where getting out of bed felt impossible. She later said she had reached a point so low that she understood how people stopped wanting to be here at all. But she had Jessica, and she had the story. So every time Jessica slept, she wrote. In coffee shops, because they were warm, because she couldn't afford to heat her flat. Page after page, chapter after chapter, a world growing in the margins of a life that was falling apart. And when the manuscript was finally done, she sent it out into the world, and the world sent it back. Rejection letter after rejection letter after rejection letter. 12 of them. 12 times someone read what she had written and decided it wasn't good enough. So 12 times the world looked at what she had built in the darkness and said no. And after the 12th rejection, she almost stopped. Not because she had given up on the story, but because the weight of everything was becoming impossible to carry. The poverty, the depression, the loneliness, the rejection, all of it. At the same time, for years. She was a single mother living on government assistance, being told over and over again that the one thing she had left, the one thing she had held onto through the grief of losing her mother, through the collapse of her marriage, through the cold Edinburgh mornings when getting out of bed felt like climbing a mountain, wasn't good enough. And then a 13th letter arrived. Not a rejection, a request. A small publishing house called Bloomsbury wanted to see the rest of it. She later said it was the best letter she had ever received in her entire life. But even then, even as she sent the full manuscript, she didn't dare believe it. Because hope, after that much darkness, is the most dangerous thing in the world. It means there is something left to lose. And she had already lost so much, she waited and waited. And then the answer came. Yes, one word. After 12 no's, after years of darkness, after everything, yes. And in that moment, sitting in that cold flat in Edinburgh, the woman who had been told she wasn't good enough felt the ground shift beneath her feet. And the woman who wrote in coffee shops because she couldn't afford to heat her flat, who raised her daughter alone on government assistance, who sent her manuscript into the world 12 times and got it back 12 times, who almost stopped, who almost let the darkness win, wasn't just anyone. That woman was J.K. Rowling. And that one, yes, changed everything. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was published in June 1997, and the world, that had spent years saying no to her, couldn't get enough. Children who had never liked reading were staying up until midnight to finish one more chapter. Parents were reading alongside their kids. Adults were hiding the covers on the train so nobody would see them reading a children's book. Because the story wasn't just a story, it was a world, a complete, breathing, living world that she had built in coffee shops and cold flats and the margins of a life that was falling apart. And once people found it, they never wanted to leave. 7 books, 8 films, theme parks, merchandise, a cultural phenomenon that touched every corner of the planet. The woman who had lived on government assistance became the first author in history to become a billionaire through writing alone. But here's what matters most: not the money, not the records, not the awards. It's this. She once said that rock bottom became the solid foundation on which she rebuilt her life. Because when you lose everything, you discover what you actually are. And what she was a storyteller. That was always true, even when nobody believed it, even when 12 doors closed in her face, even when the darkness made it hard to see the next sentence, let alone the next chapter. The story was always there, waiting for the world to finally catch up. And somewhere in the middle of all that rising, she never forgot where the strength had come from. Not from the publishers, not from the awards, not from the success, from the cold coffee shops, from the government assistance checks, from the 12 rejection letters she kept. Yes, she kept them, every single one, because they were proof of something she never wanted to forget: that the world's judgment of your worth is not the final word. She went back to Edinburgh, the same city where she had been at her lowest, and she built something there, not just a home, a life rooted in everything she had learned in the darkness. She established charities for single mothers, for children in poverty, for families fighting the same battles she had once fought alone. She funded research into the disease that had taken her mother because she understood better than most what it meant to be on the wrong side of the world's generosity. And Jessica, the baby daughter she had carried on that plane back from Portugal, grew up knowing that her mother had held onto a dream through the hardest years for both of them. There's a version of this story where she stops at the 12th rejection, where the depression wins, where the cold flat wins, where the silence wins, where she puts the manuscript away and never takes it out again. That version almost happened. But in those coffee shops, in the margins of a life that was falling apart, she made a quiet choice: to keep writing, not because she knew it would work, not because someone told her to, not because the world gave her any reason to believe, but because the story was the one thing that was still hers, and nobody could take that away. So if you're holding something the world keeps rejecting, if you're sitting in your own cold flat wondering if any of it matters, if the darkness is louder than the dream right now, remember this: 12 people said no to the most beloved story ever written. And she asked one more time. Sometimes the place that breaks you open is exactly where the real story begins. That's the story of J.K. Rowling. This is Before They Knew. See you next time